Even though my childhood was all over the place, up, down, left, and right, I wouldn't change it for the world. See, it's made me who I am today. It's important to understand ourselves as people in order to get what we truly want out of life. Therefore, we have to understand our roots and reflect on our experiences to fully grasp our values. Today, I'm going to talk about how to understand ourselves, how this will help us create who we want to be, and how it will help us in the overall grand scheme of our nation. So let's get started. It's important to thoroughly understand ourselves and our experiences. As we go through our childhood, our minds develop in different ways. Erik Erikson, a German-American psychologist, theorized that there are 8 stages of psychosocial development based on a person's age. Stages arise as people grow and face new turning points during childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. As written in a scholarly article by Gabriel Ornstein and Lindsay Lewis, each stage is defined by 2 opposing psychological tendencies, one positive and one negative. For example, the infancy period is trust versus mistrust. We all have these milestones, and we either successfully integrated into the positive one, or we didn't quite make it. See, our experiences at different times of our lives affect these developmental milestones. Children learn through different kinds of conditioning, like classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning. The interesting thing is that our parents choose, whether consciously or subconsciously, what we learn because we mainly learn from them. This means we all associate different things differently. This makes up a good portion of ourselves as people and why we're also different. It's very interesting to do research into this, and think about how you might be affected by this, because it'll explain a lot about you, but that's only the first step. The second step is to actually do something with it. After you see yourself, you have to use that information to continue moving forward. For example, understanding yourself is crucial if you want to change something about yourself, like a toxic trait that you know that you have. You have to get to the roots of your problem in order to dissolve it. Underneath toxic behaviors are toxic personality traits, which are what we subconsciously piece together based on our perception and interpretation of the world and ourselves. In other words, personality traits concern how someone has learned to understand the world and his or her place in it. A quote from the book Using Emotional Intelligence to Survive and Prosper by Roy Lubit. For example, I used to be very codependent in relationships with anyone. In order to help myself and others in that situation, I had to realize where this trait came from and really work through it. As first-year college students, a lot of us are still figuring out our footing in this world. Self-reflection is very important when figuring out who we are versus who we want to be. We're still growing and learning, but our foundation has to be strong so that we can grow to be whoever we want to be. In a quote by Ilana Vanzaz, the journey into self-love and self-acceptance must begin with self-examination. Until you take the journey of self-reflection, it's almost impossible to grow or learn in life. We need to understand ourselves for the betterment of ourselves, but also to help us with interpersonal relationships on a bigger scale. See, as a community and as a whole, recognizing our differences and why they're there helps us to ease tensions and let us all get along better. We may not be as opposed to a person as we think we are. As we learned from the textbook on page 57 and 58, photographer Jan Arthus Bernard started a project to help encourage understanding of what separates and what unites people. He interviewed thousands of people from all across the globe asking controversial questions, and he wanted us to compare our answers to theirs in order to see what we have in common with these random people and what remains puzzling and mysterious about the thoughts and lives of others. A quote from page 58. We have values and morals in common with someone on even the most polar side of the spectrum. In order to engage in civil discourse, we have to keep that in mind and understand that their opinions and actions are justified in their own mind, which, as we know, works differently than ours. See, because these days we're all so opposed to the conflicting side of ours that we don't stop to think that we're so opposed to the conflicting side of ours that we don't stop and think about what we might have in common with the people we're against. There's so much division in our country today. A study by Pew Research said that 90% of both Trump and Biden supporters said that if the other wins, that would lead to lasting harm in the country. Our relationship with the other side would be better if we stopped to take a moment to just listen and find out how we could relate to them. So in conclusion, we have to understand ourselves in depth to see why we are the way that we are in order to become who we want to be, as well as make connections with people that would have otherwise never been possible. Today, I talked about the importance of understanding our personality through our childhood, how this affects us today, and how we can use this to make our country a better place. I've learned so much from this class, but this topic is something that really resonated with me because it's big on the values of empathy and seeing yourself through other people's eyes. So I'm definitely going to take it with me as I go on. I'd also like to say thank you to Casey and my classmates for making this class as enjoyable as it possibly could be in our given situation. And yeah, I'm sure to take this information I learned with me. So thanks so much.